Today we're going to talk about getting your bike set up in a stand so that you could ride indoors. The first thing you need to do is make sure your tires are properly inflated. That's important because your rear wheel is going to be riding on a roller that gets pushed into the tire, and if your tire is deflated, it's going to add more friction to the system and it's going to break down the casing on your tire. The first thing you want to do is change your rear axle. The reason you're doing that is a lot of bikes have axles where the levers are made out of aluminum or titanium or carbon fiber, and the clamping mechanism in the training stand is going to damage those pieces. So what we do is we take out the nice axle, and you do that by unlocking the lever first. Unlock it. You're going to hold the lever with one hand and unthread the nut from the other side, and you're going to take it totally off. And then you pull the axle out, and you're going to take the springs out also. It comes with the axle. Assemble that so you don't lose any parts. And you're going to replace the nice axle with a really cheap steel axle. The reason you're doing that is cheap axles have a cone shape here that fits into the clamping mechanism better than better axles do. So you slide the axle into the frame. You're going to put the spring in from the other side. Now, when you put the springs in, the springs are wider on one side and they taper down to a small part at the other side. You want to put the spring in so that the small end is towards the middle of the bike. So on the right side here, it would fit in this way, and on the left side, it would fit in that way. So you slide the spring on, you thread the nut back on. Now the question is, how much do you tighten down this nut? And the way you determine that is when you lock this lever over, you want it to go about halfway and just start to get tight. This is too loose. See how it flips all the way over and there's no tension. So you tighten the nut up just a little bit at a time. Flip this, and that's what you're looking for. You want your axle lever to come over about halfway and just start to get some tension on it. Once you get that, just push it over the rest of the way and lock it down. You're now ready to mount your bike into the stand. To do that, the first thing you're going to do is to get the cone on the axle engaged into the left side here. When you insert the bike into the stand, slide that in, and you want to make sure the lever lines up with this opening. If it's like this, it's going to hit the axle and it's not going to fully engage. So turn it. Now it fits in. Line up this with the other side. At this point, you want to be careful that your gear cable does not get pinched. That's too loose. It went down with not enough force. Also, if you get the bike, you can see it's got a little rock to it. So what you want to do is unlock it again. And on the other side of the stand, you're going to thread out the little short axle and then try locking it again. All right, that's better. And then tighten down the locking nut on this side. After your bike is mounted in the stand, the only other thing left to do is to tighten the roller so that it rubs against your tire. And you do that by tightening down this wing nut. And when you get it pretty close, this particular one also has a quick release cam. If yours just has a wing nut, you just tighten it down until the roller pushes into the tire about 3/16 of an inch. On this one, you have to get it close and then actually flip the cam down. You're almost ready to ride. All right, now the bike is nice and stable. It doesn't wiggle side to side. Next, you want to get a training block. And if you notice, there's different slots in here. Each slot rests at a different height. So what you want to do is slide the block under the front wheel and then measure the height from the axle to the ground, making sure it's the same as the back one. Once you determine that, if you turn the block to another level, like a different slot, the front of your bike could lift up a little bit, which simulates climbing. But that's part of the training aspect, and you can read about that when you get your trainer. At this point, you're ready to ride indoors, but there's a few things you need to consider. You're going to sweat a lot when you ride indoors because you're doing a lot of work and there's no air to cool you off. They make something known as a sweat catcher. And what it does is it attaches to the front of your bike and it comes down and it covers your bike so that when you start dripping, you don't drip on the bike. Another thing, they make a mat that fits under the bike and the trainer. It isolates noise, and when you start dripping sweat, you're not going to damage hardwood flooring or perspire into a rug that might smell kind of unpleasant after a while. Third thing you might want to consider, most bike computers attach to the front wheel of the bike. When you ride indoors, your front wheel is stationary. If you want your computer to work, you have to put the pickup onto the back wheel, which means you may need a longer wire kit so that your sensor bracket will actually reach all the way to the back of the bike.